Welcome again to Faces of Sterling. I'm Terry Ackerman, your host, Town Administrator in Sterling. And each segment, we profile people who are making a valuable contribution to the community. Today, we are fortunate to have members of the former Government Study Committee. We have Bob Dumont, who was chairman, and Kathleen Mello, who was clerk of the Government Study Committee. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
So let's begin by talking about when the Government Study Committee was created and what was its purpose.
Terry, we were created back in May of 2009 by Article 12 at the annual town meeting. And Bob was going to elaborate a little on the purposes. Sorry.
Our purpose really was to take a look at the town government, all the boards and commissions, their functions, the employees, their functions, to evaluate them, to take a look at what other towns do, and to make recommendations regarding changes that we might see be appropriate.
Who were the members of the Government Study Committee?
In addition to Kathleen and me, Doris Bennett, Jeff Donaldson, Don Murray, John Potter, and Mike Redzicki.
So what was the work that your committee did? Well, one of the things that we really wanted to reinforce is one of our guiding principles. Our goal was to preserve and strengthen the power of the citizens of Sterling. We're also focused on making our town government more efficient and more effective. We had over 50 meetings throughout the 3 years that we were a committee. We had over 55 interviews with different town employees, administrator, board of selectmen. We also held something called a government cafe, where we invited the town of Sterling, members of the town of Sterling, to come join with us and hear what we were doing and give us any input at that point. We also met with 2 professional groups, so they bring a lot of information about what other towns in Massachusetts are doing. So that was very, very helpful for a report.
Great. And what were the main recommendations?
The recommendations that really focused on how the town government was structured. We recommended that we increase the Board of Selectmen from 3 to 5. We recommended that we add a town planner. We recommended that there be extensive codification of the role of Board of Selectmen, of the relationship to the town administrator, and the role of the town administrator itself. We recommended that we do some things to strengthen the town meeting, the role of the town meeting in Sterling, and we've been concerned about the fact that the attendance at the town meetings has not been up to more than 7% of the registered voters of the town for several years. So we wanted to strengthen that and educate people more to the importance of the town meeting. We also made some recommendations regarding other boards and commissions, and particularly changes having to do with eliminating a couple of boards, one board, 2 boards that were, and one that was appointed and one that was elected, and to transfer those functions to a more centralized operation where the accountability of who's responsible for the town government was clearer.
What happened after you released the report?
Well, when we fulfilled our assignment, when the report was completed, we made the report available in hard copy. There's copies at the library. There's copies on the website. In addition, we made a public meeting in that 1835 building where the public could come. It was on cable as well, where we presented the report, our recommendations. And lastly, the study committee, we were dissolved in the annual town meeting of May 2012.
What is the status of the recommendations now?
Well, of the 12 recommendations that we made, the selectmen have adopted some of them that they could do without any special action on the part of the town meeting. Some of them have been put on hold, and several of them were put before the town meeting in 2013. We were disappointed that the town meeting did not take any action because the articles were tabled, and we expect that the selectmen will bring forward those articles or something similar to those articles for the town meeting in the spring.
Coming up, right.
Coming up in the spring. So that's the status of things as we understand it.
So I understand that the selectmen are going to be bringing back some articles back to town meeting, and one of them is the form of government article. Can you tell us, what is this all about and why do we really need it?
When we started our work, we naturally went to various sources within the town to try to find the various descriptions of various functions, and we were surprised and frustrated by the absence of things that were written down. And so we began to see that absence of clarity, of absence of what to do and what relationships were, produced problems and inefficiencies and difficulties that could be overcome by an effort to clarify and ultimately codify the relationships and the functions of the various boards, and particularly the Board of Selectmen, its functions, and the town administrator and its functions, and the relationship between the two, and the relationship between the town administrator and the various other boards and commissions in the state government. So we recommended that as much as could be done to write down and describe these things be done locally, but also that we seek a special act of the legislature which would, in part, address the question of the codification of the structure of the town government in a way that would be clear and legal, and will eliminate the possibilities of suits and other issues that could come from the lack of clarity with respect to the way the government is structured.
Right.
If you look at our town recommendations in the report we did, we put in there an organization chart which has an incredible number of entries on it.
Right.
And we tried very hard, and I think at the moment it's an accurate reflection of the description of how these various functions interrelate to one another. But it's very complicated.
Right.
And the more we can do to simplify it, the better. And one of those areas of simplification has to do with getting as many functions as possible, reporting into one place where the responsibilities and accountabilities are clearest for everyone to understand.
Right.
One thing we kept hearing over and over again at our meetings is taking a helicopter view. We didn't want to look at people, we didn't want to look at personalities, we looked at processes.
Right.
If we looked at the town of Sterling, it's literally a multi-million-dollar business. And how would they run it in the business world versus sometimes the government world has a very different way of establishing their org charts or what have you. So again, from that helicopter view, we were looking at what are the positions? What is this position? Do they have what is their role? What is their responsibility versus who's in that position now? Who's going to be there next year? We wanted to eliminate the human factor and essentially just look at the processes, the whole process of the government, and did it flow? How did it flow?
Right. So this special article on the town meeting would codify those relationships and formalize and make things clear.
It would help to do that. There's probably more that can be done.
Right. It's a
But
good
it would
first step.
also be a first step to going to the legislature and ask them to approve
Right.
something.
Well, if you look at what we have right now, it was established in the 1700s. We only have an act of incorporation, which really just says where our town lines essentially are.
Right.
When you look at, then we have, and no offense, but we have our 9 or 10 pages to the pet control or animal control. We need to know, the town of Sterling needs to know, that the citizens going forward need to know what are the roles, and making sure this is what the people want them to be, and that they know that these are the roles.
Right. Tell us about the DPW article. What is that article trying to accomplish, and why is that a good idea?
Like we were talking before, it came over and over again up at our meetings of looking at a helicopter view. We're not looking at people, we are looking at positions. We are looking at long-term. What is it going to be like 5 years from now? The demands of the town 10 years from now. We looked at over 36 towns in the Commonwealth. Only 3 of them had an elected board, and these were elected by the Board of Selectmen. And only 3 of them, including Sterling, had elected by the town.
Elected DPW boards.
Correct, an elected DPW board. And again, we can't stress enough is we weren't looking at people. We weren't looking at people, we were looking at personalities, we really were looking at, like we were saying, that helicopter view of how it functions in making this government more effective and how the DPW plays into that role.
So the primary concern we had was that we had independent silos, if you will, of town activities, town functions. The DPW is responsible for major services that accrue in the town, and the town citizens think of those services being provided by the town, and there's a great deal of confusion over who's responsible for those services. There have been references made to getting the selectmen out of bed at 5 in the morning because something didn't happen on the road, and the roads have no relationship to the Board of Selectmen in terms of their accountability.
Right.
So our concern was to bring the responsibilities of these major town services under the control of one organization, namely the Board of Selectmen, and to make the DPW board members advisory to the Board of Selectmen. Then the reporting relationships and the accountability would be clearer, more efficient, and the citizens would have a clearer understanding over what's going on in their government. There have been times when the DPW board has acted in the past in an independent fashion that wasn't necessarily viewed as in the town's best interest. And that's another reason why it might be good to put the responsibilities all under one board. And so that's what we recommended. And we hope serious consideration and debate will occur with regard to that matter.
So if people have more questions, how can they find out more information, and how do they best contact you?
Well, they can obviously look on the website, but if people want to contact me directly, I'd be pleased to hear from them. They can call me at 978-563-1835 or email me at bdumont@msn.com.
The main way also is come out and vote. If you're not happy with how things are going, if you want to improve your government, it's not just about the government study committee meeting, it's going to the town, listening, and voting, because you're really the one that's going to make the difference in the end.
I want to thank our guests today, Bob Dumont and Kathleen Mello of the former Government Study Committee. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you very much for having us.
It's a pleasure, and I hope it will be of some help.
Right, definitely. And I want to thank our crew today, Emir, Matt, and Chris, thank the audience for watching. Don't forget to come to town meeting and vote. I'm your host, Terry Ackerman. See you next time.